I'm Marcel Santos. My background is South American. I'm 45 and basically been doing this, I guess you could say, the whole abandonment, the whole street life journey for, let's see, altogether now for about 11 years. You experience quite a lot, like just whether it's the shelter life. Shelter life is a journey on its own. You will hear so many different things, so many different stories. Just what you see from day to day, it can be an overdose one night, a death the next night, depending on where you are. I don't want to mention certain names of certain facilities, but a certain facility in particular, you're guaranteed to step on a crack pipe at any given time, day or night. Doesn't make a difference, right? Just being in that setting, and again, it's all, I guess you could say it's all a test of strength to a certain degree, because depending on the person, depending on what they've been through before or getting into it, they might not be able to handle what they see and what's to come day after day, right? Even to say the cycle of food that you're given within the shelter system, it's a big change for some, right? Because depending on the way you were eating before you got in the shelter, if you weren't already eating somewhat healthy before you get into the shelter, when you do get into the shelter, it completely changes your system. So it just depends. Everybody is different to a certain degree, just for what they can handle, what they can't handle, whether it's the life itself, the food, just the whole cycle of you have to get up or you have to be up by anywhere between 6 and 7. Every shelter is different, so anywhere between 6 and 7, you got to regiment yourself to make sure you're there for breakfast between 7 and 8. Make sure you're off-site between 8 and 9. And then again, depending on the shelter, you can't come back till after 4. Right? So even to say if you're tired, you'll find most guys that do this kind of life, that have this kind of life, they just wander the street for the sake of wandering the street, just to keep active, just to avoid from whatever, if they don't want to fall into that set of having another overdose, or maybe depending on what their situation is, if they got pissed off the night before or the morning of, or they got into an argument with somebody, they go straight to the liquor store. And literally you will see some of these guys, and again, it's not to label them whatever, but you'll see some of these guys where they're killing a whole bottle of whiskey, 2 bottles, 3 bottles within the hour before they go back in the shelter, right? So it just depends. Like for some people, now mind you, you'll come across some of these guys that have been in the service, Army, Navy, whatever, and then when they get into the shelter life, it's something that even though they have X amount of years in the military, they're just not ready for this kind of life. They're not. There's nothing that can actually train you for what your mindset is going to be like when you get in, after you get in, and during that whole time. And me being as raw and honest as I am, I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to attack the government, but just their stance and their so-called knowledge of what it's like in the shelter. They have no idea what it's like in the shelter. You can go to anybody on whatever level of government, they have no idea what it's like to be in a shelter. They don't know what it's like to all of a sudden see their life change to where they have to go into the shelter for whatever reason, whether it's domestic problems, marital problems, dependency problems, unemployment problems, just for whatever reason. they don't know how to wrap their mind about what they're going to be dealing with, whether it's for the next week, the next month, the next year, right? Because you do have individuals that are in the shelter for 10 years straight and longer, right? And they get so comfortable with it that for them, it just feels like a sense of home for them because they have nowhere else to turn to. The big thing that I would see is that for whether it's organizations, whether it's politicians, whoever on the higher level, just to put it that way, and I'm not saying this to insult anybody, but politicians, whoever, open your eyes, because they don't. They're completely ignorant to what goes on out here. Right, pardon my French, but they don't give a shit about anybody that's out here. They don't. I see it all the time. They don't. They will either literally step on somebody to get over them, or they will just completely walk by them, look down at them, and then just walk right past them like they're a dying dog. They don't understand how upside down their life is literally when they get into the system, what they have to deal with within the system, what they have to deal with when they're on the road. Because even to say, okay, they're out of the shelter at 9 o'clock, whatever, then when they come out here, it just depends on who they run into. Because again, if they have a dependency, and again, not to make it seem like it's an attack on people and their way of life and their personal choice. But again, a lot of these guys, they either have some type of hardcore narcotic dependency, whether it's meth, fentanyl, ecstasy, right? They just have some sort of hook that will get them by for the moment, or for the night, or for the day, right? Because they don't have that big picture in front of them to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this tomorrow to make it seem like it's a bed of roses type of thing. Right? I know people that have slept here, right? Now, not to say any of the people you see walking here, whether they're going to Starbucks or whether they're going to the bakery, you can hear their little comments. That's fine, good on them, because they don't understand what it's like to be working in the financial district, working with the stock market, and then all of a sudden you lose your job, you're making $50,000-$60,000 a year as a stockbroker, whatever the case is, a chartered accountant, and you end up here the next week, right? I used to work at Bain College, and I've seen some of these stockbroker types working in that building, and they're quick to judge people because they have a better job and they think, oh yeah, you're this and this and you'll never amount to nothing. And then when the stock market crashes or whatever the case is, you see them the very next week huddled up in a sleeping bag in the bus shelter in the freezing cold when it's minus 20 and it's nothing but ice on the road, right? They can't even begin to grasp that idea or way of life, right? They don't know. They're not mentally prepared for what to expect or what's to come or what possibly might happen, right? They don't know what it's like. They get so comfortable in their way of life that they don't know what other outlets are available to them to get clothes, to get food, for some place to go, just to get cleaned up, shave, whatever. They just can't grasp that way of life. And it's not even to say that they don't want to grasp it. They just never imagined that anything can happen, anything is possible, and they think that they're going to be working for the rest of their life, even though they might be already late 40s, early 50s. They think, yeah, whatever, I've had good jobs and I'm still going to keep working, whatever. But you can't necessarily rely on that these days. When they go by any of the tent city spots, they don't know what anybody what their life is like. But again, people that are outsiders, they're quick to judge them just because, they live up in Rosedale or Thornhill or Richmond Hill, and they think that people that live in tent cities, they think they're dumb, they don't have an education, they would be surprised to listen to some of these people, and they got a degree in law from UFT, or they have something, economics or accounting or whatever, biochemistry, something, right? Some type of degree, whatever. You can't actually look at anybody. You can't look at this guy and say, oh, he's dumb, he's a loser, he's a bum, he's a vagrant. All he does is just sleep on the street and go begging for food and panhandling and whatever. When I lived in Vancouver, I know guys, if you were to actually listen to them, to connect with them, you would be blown away to listen to how their life has been, and to, what their travel in life has been, and just never mind their educational background, right? Their educational background alone will put such a dent in your memory that it would actually make you a little bit bad, because somebody looked down on them just because of their exterior. They think that because they have unkept clothes or long hair or whatever, and again, they see them on the street panhandling, whatever, they think that, oh, they've been doing that for a long time, whatever, right? You can't judge anybody. Like, even when I go through Bay Station, right, especially with Christmas coming up soon, and you see the students with the UNICEF boxes, right? The number of homeless people that I know. See, and again, I don't judge anybody because I don't know what their life is like. I'm receptive enough that I can embrace anybody, regardless of who they are or where they've been. I'll talk with anybody, and some of these students will come up to me, oh yeah, you want to donate to this and this group, or you want to donate to the homeless. So as a joke, even though I'm serious, I'll turn it back on them. I said, sure, I don't mind the donation, I'm homeless as well, right? But you see, again, they look at me and they think, oh, this guy's kidding. They don't know what my life is like, right? They think that because, my face is shaved and my clothes are decent, they think that whatever, they're thinking I'm living in a decent neighborhood, whatever the case is. They already have preconceived ideas of what they imagine my life to be, not what it actually is or what to expect. If they were to actually take 5 minutes to listen to a fraction of my story, right? They would never expect it. And then when I do actually get that fraction of time from them, they're literally speechless. They're dumbfounded, because again, they look at me and they see that I'm presentable, and they think, what happened? What went wrong? Where was there that difference to where you're on the street, or you're going to different places just to collect food to get your stomach full for the day, and then plus you have people out here, never mind mental issues, that's a different topic on itself, but just for people that have health conditions, right? Whether they have diabetes, whether they're anemic, whether they're some type of medical condition where they have to eat, especially if they do have pharmaceutical assistance for their food intake, they would never know, because they're quick to write homeless people off. They think that they're beneath, not even to say that these people are dirt, they think they're beneath dirt because they think they've had a horrible life with some sort of discrepancies, and they automatically think that everybody that's on the street has a criminal record. Not everybody on the street, or not everybody that's homeless, has a criminal record, right? But again, they're quick to judge that, right? Basically, for me, it's just to have a place to somewhat call home. I have a place where I can rest my head instead of going to all these different places just to get a little bit of sleep. Because you see, again, keep in mind that anybody you see that's, whether they're in a tent or whether they're wandering the streets all hours of the night, because see, keep in mind, all these guys you see out here, whether it's midnight, 1 o'clock. You'll see some of these guys out here at 4 o'clock in the morning and they can't sleep. You'll see some of these guys out here, and again, it's not to say that because they're a junkie or whatever the case is, because of that switch in life, they can't sleep, right? I know guys out here that they're awake 10 days straight. Now, mind you, they're not they're not the most mentally intact when you talk to them the next morning. But again, you have people out here 10 days, 11 days, 12 days, 14 days, no sleep. Maybe, if lucky, 2 hours somewhere on that stretch, right? But it's not like somebody that's working in the financial district where, okay, they're done work, whatever, they go to yoga, they go to Pilates, they go to the gym, they go spend time with their kids, whatever the case is, and then they go home, they get their 6, 7, 8 hours sleep, and everything is supposed to be all grand and glorious the next day. That doesn't happen for everybody. Something small that can make a big difference. Well, not to say every, but any individual that they pass, treat them like a person. That's all it takes. Treat them like a person.